Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Marnie Whalen-Tarini, and I'm an Assistant Director of Student Engagement and Undergraduate Student Life for Columbia College and Columbia Engineering. First, I want to congratulate you all and welcome you to the class of Columbia 2024. Although these are certainly unique circumstances that we're currently living in, we are excited to welcome you to the Columbia community. This webinar is the first in an 8-week series that will cover 4 themes: academics at Columbia, life as a Columbia student, the Columbia community, and life beyond the gates. Today, we'll be holding an introduction to your first year academics at Columbia College and Columbia Engineering to kick off this week's theme of academics at Columbia. I would like to point out to begin that this session includes closed captioning, which you can turn on using the toolbar at the bottom of your window. So at this time, I'd like to welcome all the panelists to introduce themselves. Awesome. Hello, everybody. So first, we have Dean Hollabaugh from Columbia College.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Hollabaugh. I'm the Dean of Academic Affairs for Columbia College. And in the college, academic affairs encompasses the undergraduate curriculum, so not only all of the majors and concentrations that you can pursue, but also the core curriculum required of all of our students, and also includes undergraduate research and fellowship opportunities and academic advising. So my job is essentially to do everything I can to help make the academic experience for Columbia College students a rich and satisfying one, and I'm happy to be here to talk to you today.
Great. Next, we have Dean Brovman from Columbia Engineering.
Hello and welcome to everybody. My name is Leora Brovman. I'm Senior Associate Dean in the Engineering School for Undergraduate and Graduate Student Affairs. In that capacity, I oversee all academic programs for both our undergraduate and graduate students. And one part of my role is to develop school-wide programs for our undergraduate students. For example, our Senior Design Expo and our undergraduate research programs.
Great. Next, we have Dean Carrillo from the Barrick Center for Student Advising.
Hi, everybody. My name is Angie Cadillo, and I'm Associate Dean in the Barrick Center for Student Advising. I'm one of 30 full-time professional academic advisors in the Center for Student Advising, whose primary responsibility is to guide and support Columbia College and Columbia Engineering students through their academic journeys throughout their 4 years at Columbia. We look forward to working with you.
And we also have 2 current students who are joining us today. We have McKenna from Columbia College.
Hi, everyone. My name is McKenna Chiara. I'm a rising junior in Columbia College, and I'm studying economics and philosophy.
And we also have Lynn from Columbia Engineering.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lynn Irvin. I'm also a rising junior, but I'm in the engineering school. I'm currently studying earth and environmental engineering with a minor in sociology.
Amazing. So to start us off, Dean Carrillo, can you just give us an overview of what we can expect to learn from our panel discussion today?
Sure. Today, we hope to share with you specifics about how academics work at Columbia for you as incoming Columbia College and Columbia Engineering students. You will learn details about your first year curriculum, as well as resources and services that you can utilize to make your transition to college a smooth one. We will also offer some suggestions for you to consider to help ensure your success at Columbia.
Great. So what Dean Carrillo described will be the first half of today. And then the second part of our webinar this afternoon is a part where we'll answer your questions. So at the bottom of your toolbar, you should be able to see a Q&A function where you are able to chat in what other questions that you might have while the panelists are speaking. So to begin, I'd like to welcome back McKenna and Dean Hollabaugh for our first question.
Thank you, Marnie.
Great.
Okay, so Dean Hollabaugh, I know entering into my first year, I know that I was very excited to begin the core. I remember doing my summer reading for literature humanities, which was then the first 6 books of the Iliad. and eagerly anticipating how my professor would approach the material and what class discussions would look like. And beyond that, I was just generally curious about what adjusting to the core curriculum would look like and how to prepare for it. And in that same vein, as an incoming first year, I also remember being unsure of how I wanted to combine potential majors and concentrations, or how concentrations at Columbia even worked. Even now, as a joint major, there seems to be a bit of mystery amongst current students surrounding how different fields of study can be combined at Columbia. So it would be great if, in addition to speaking to what first years can anticipate with the core, you could also offer some guidance on basically like how majors and concentrations work at Columbia and what to expect.
Okay, thanks, McKenna. You've raised a couple of big questions, so I may talk very quickly. And let me start with your question about the core curriculum. I'll focus my comments on literature humanities, or Lit-Hum, as it's commonly called, not only because you mentioned it in particular as a big part of your first year, but also because I have taught Lit-Hum and will be teaching it again this year, so I love talking about it. And I think that what I'm about to say will apply to any of the core courses that all of you will take. So inspired by McKenna's questions, I'll mention a few aspects of Lit-Hum that might feel new or different to new students. First of all, what you've heard is true. There will be lots of reading, many, many pages of reading. To understand why there's so much reading, you'll want to understand that the objective of Lit-Hum is not to give you a very, very detailed understanding of each work. There are other classes that will allow you to take a much deeper dive into these works. Instead, you'll want to understand that the works that we read in Lit-Hum have all been chosen because when we read them in relationship to one another, we can trace an evolution of certain ideas about our lived experience as humans, of certain ways of looking at the world, of certain assumptions about what motivates us as individuals, what can connect us or divide us as people. So we're tracing these ideas through history, and we're looking at how various thinkers long before us have also looked at the same history and built on it, or questioned it, or rebelled against it, or adapted it. So we want to cover a lot of ground in order to see that implicit dialogue that's happening among all of these authors through narrative form. So that's why we're covering so many pages from week to week. And in order to move through it all at that pace, you may need to develop a new approach to reading. You're not trying to know everything on every page. That's actually impossible. Instead, you'll probably want to read a text with specific questions in mind, so that you move through the pages kind of quickly as you watch for the places you can latch onto to help you answer those questions. So try to remember when you begin Lit-Hum and your other classes that if it feels like a lot, that's because it is, but it is for a reason. You're not only thinking about some really profound ideas about what it means to be human, but you're also learning a skill of taking in lots of information and analyzing it for the parts that are most valuable and significant to you, which I will add is a skill you're going to use in all your other courses at Columbia, including those outside the core, not to mention in pretty much any career you will pursue later on. So don't worry if this is not all completely clear in your first week of classes. Your Lit-Hum professor is going to help you find the right approach to all of this reading through advice offered in class and advice offered in office hours. The professors who teach in the core curriculum are there to help you adjust to academic life at Columbia. And you'll get to know them well throughout the year. So I would advise you to take advantage of that close proximity, whether it's in person or online, and talk to them often about not only what you're learning, but how you're learning. And the other part of McKenna's question about the core was about in-class discussions. And I really want to emphasize this next point. As you learn these new approaches and these new skills, please remember that the whole point of the core curriculum is that you are not in this very, very challenging project alone. You are going through it with about 20 other Columbia students and a professor who's dedicated to working closely with all of you. So you're analyzing these texts together, you're discussing and debating which parts of them are important. And by having to discuss and debate the point of view of each text, you're being pushed to think more clearly and more precisely about your own point of view. And this is, I believe, the most valuable part of any core class. You're not just having these discussions and debates to establish what you think about a particular piece of literature or philosophy or science or art or music. You're having these discussions and debates because you're developing in more sophisticated and more precise ways your view of the world. You're practicing and honing your point of view, not only so that you can explain it and debate it in a classroom, but also so you can apply it and act on it and use it as your guide for making decisions and engaging with other people for years to come. So even though it may be a bit nerve-wracking during your first few weeks of college to speak up in front of all the other people in class and ask questions or offer suggestions or make observations, I encourage you to be brave and try. Again, these are skills that take practice, and your core classroom is the practice room for you and your classmates. Okay, there's so much more I could say, but there was a second part of McKenna's question I need to get to. So let me just encourage all of you to attend the webinar that will be held tomorrow that is all about the experience of the core curriculum. So McKenna also said that she remembers the challenge of selecting her major. And there's so much to talk about here because the answer to questions about majors and concentrations depends so much on each individual student's interests and backgrounds and goals and future plans. So let me start off by saying something that's probably going to sound obvious. I think that choosing your major or concentration is a very important decision. But I may be saying that for a different reason from the one you might assume. You may think at this point that your choice of major or concentration will set you on a particular path that will determine everything about your future education, your future career, your future happiness. That's a lot of pressure. And I would argue that your future is not completely predetermined by your major or concentration. And I know a lot of Columbia College alumni who would agree with that statement. The reason I think that choosing a major or concentration is so important is that it requires you to understand the ways that you think and the ways that you work and what your talents and your affinities are. You're choosing into an academic community, which means that your coursework and your research and your professors and your classmates are going to be helping you think about the kinds of questions you want to be able to answer, the kind of problems you want to be able to solve, the work that you find deeply, deeply satisfying, even on the days where it may be difficult or a bit of a slog. So you're choosing the subject that keeps you interested because it reflects the kind of work you want to do in the world. So as a Columbia College student, you will have over 70 majors and approximately 50 concentrations you could choose from. So I keep mentioning both majors and concentrations, and McKenna mentioned this as well, because this is something that, to my knowledge, is unique to Columbia College. You can earn your bachelor's degree with either a major or a concentration. You might have heard some people compare a concentration to a minor, and that's a somewhat useful comparison only to the extent that a concentration is smaller than a major, but a concentration is larger than most minors, and that's because it's been constructed by the faculty to offer students both breadth and depth in a subject, and it requires a certain amount of advanced coursework, might also require research. So a concentration achieves essentially the same goals as a major in deepening your understanding of a particular way of thinking and way of working, and then a major allows students to do even more work at the advanced level. So how do you learn about all these possible majors and concentrations? How do you learn more about subjects you may not have encountered in high school, like anthropology or environmental biology or linguistics? How do you find an existing major that might combine more than one of your interests, like McKenna's economics philosophy major? Well, don't panic, you have some time. Students in the college declare a major or concentration in the spring semester of sophomore year. So you have several semesters to try out different courses, to talk with your academic advisors in the Barrick Center for Student Advising, to attend the Academic Resources Fair in August, and then open houses and other events held by academic departments, and most importantly, to talk with faculty. In particular, you'll want to talk to faculty members in a department who have the title Director of Undergraduate Studies. We often call them DUS for brevity's sake. As their title suggests, they're the faculty in a department who advise students on a major or concentration from start to finish. And again, I will make a pitch for another webinar this week. It will be held on Thursday, and it will feature 4 faculty members who are directors of undergraduate studies in their departments in fields ranging from the natural sciences and the social sciences and the humanities. So they'll talk even more about the process of selecting a major, but they'll also talk about how you can make connections with faculty during your years at Columbia. So I've gone on for a while, so I'll stop here. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you again, McKenna, for your great questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dean Halba, for providing that insight. And I'll now pass it over to Lynn and Dean Brofman.
Hi, thank you so much, McKenna and Dean Halaba. So while there is a lot of overlap between the Columbia College and the Columbia Engineering sort of experience, the Columbia Engineering requirements for the first year and years beyond do look a little different than for Columbia College. And I know especially when I was in incoming first year, I had a lot of questions about classes like physics, chemistry, and math, where there are different levels you can sign up for the first year. And I had a lot of questions about which level I should take, and if I was to take them, how sort of placement works for those classes. I also sort of was questioning what parts of the core curriculum I took, because I knew that I took part of it, but not all of it. And additionally, I had questions about when engineering students choose our majors, as well as how minors work in the engineering school and how those are a little bit different from the concentrations that are open to CC students, Columbia College students. So Dean Brofman, would you be able to speak on these a little bit, or any other advice you have for incoming first year engineering students?
Thank you very much, Lynn. I'm delighted to be here and to respond to some very important questions for our incoming class of 2024 engineering students. Indeed, you're right that the curriculum that the undergraduate engineers follow is somewhat different from that which is followed by your college peers. And in the first year, one can expect to be taking physics, calculus, chemistry, forming really the foundation of your program for the academic year. And each of these classes is offered in different levels based on what you may have done in high school. As I often like to say to students that I meet with, it doesn't matter which level you start with, you all end up and graduate at the same point. So with that in mind, placement into the more accelerated, if you would, courses in physics, chemistry, and calculus are typically based either on placement exams or on work that you may have done in high school in advanced placement. I will tell you that you will get very sound, good advice from your advisor in the Center for Student Advising, and would encourage you to follow that with respect to placement. But in terms of my guidance or my recommendation to students, I would say that it's really important to create a balanced first semester program of studies. Just because you get into all of the accelerated classes in physics, chemistry, and calculus does not mean you should take them or that you need to take them. There are reasons why one might decide to take the more accelerated physics class, for example, and remain with the general chemistry class. And again, I think it's really important to create that balance in one's curriculum. So please use the guidance of your Center for Student Advising advisor. The other thing I would say to the class of 2024 is this year we are strongly encouraging you, because of the unusual circumstances, to make use of the 3 semesters, the fall, spring, and summer A. If you spread your courses out over those 3 semesters, you will be exactly where you need to be at the end of your first year, with plenty of time still for summer internships or other summer opportunities. And it will give you the ability to really ease into your college studies, I think, in a very good and comfortable way. I want to speak just briefly about the students choosing a major, how one decides on a major, and so on. All of you, as you were applying to Columbia, checked a box on the application which said what you thought you would want to major in. During your first year, you will have the opportunity to participate in the Art of Engineering, which is a foundational class for all our first year students. You will also participate in a project in the Art of Engineering, which will give you some hands-on experience with what that particular discipline in engineering might look like in professional practice, obviously at an initial early entry stage. You will also have the opportunity during the year to participate in departmental seminars, student groups, and others that will give you different insights into the disciplines and pathways in the different majors. I encourage you also to consider the school's vision, Engineering for Humanity, and the many different ways in which the SEAS disciplines interact and work in a cross-disciplinary way with each other. So all of these opportunities will be available to you in your first year through departmental seminars, student groups, and so on. And I think it's actually a very exciting time to be part of a field like engineering because of its centrality in just about everything that contributes to human well-being. And if, as the year goes by, you realize that that box you checked almost a year ago doesn't exactly align with where your interests are today, you'll be able to make changes. All the courses that you take in your first year will align you very well to what you would need to be doing in each and every one of the engineering majors. A quick thought on minoring, and in the engineering school, if we do, it's a minor, it's not a concentration. You have the opportunity to minor in something like 20 liberal arts offerings, as well as minoring in engineering fields. This is not something that you need to make a decision on right now. I encourage you to explore in the liberal arts the areas that might be interesting to you, and as you become more engaged in your major, to explore courses that parallel your major. There is plenty of time really for an engineering student to think about the minor. A couple of pieces of advice that I would like to share with you. One of the first things is that I want to encourage you all to get to know one professor in your first year at college. Participate in departmental seminars, find out who is doing research or is engaged in work that you are interested in. Go and meet with faculty during their office hours, whether this is by requesting a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting. Talk with a faculty member, get to know them. Our faculty really enjoy meeting with and talking to students and will welcome conversation. One of our faculty members, and I'm sure many have said this, that the loneliest hour in their week is their office hour because nobody comes to it. So I want to encourage you, make use of your faculty welcoming you to come in and talk about those things that interest you. Nurture that relationship with one member of faculty in your first year. It will be very important and valuable to you as you continue your academic journey. And then the other piece of advice I'd like to share with you is really to encourage you to get involved with things outside of the classroom that really engage you. Find the things that you're passionate about or interested in learning more about. Get involved so that your experience as a first year will extend well beyond the classroom. With that, I welcome you again, and we really look forward to having the class of 2024 with us this fall in a matter of a few short weeks, and we look forward to welcoming you all to our community. Thank you. And I think with this, we go back to Lynn and Marnie and others.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dean Brovman. That's all wonderful advice and definitely important things to hear as an incoming first year. I think we might hear from McKenna and Dean Carrillo next about advising quickly before we turn it back. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. So Dean Carrillo, on the topic of student advising, personally, my academic advisor has played quite an integral role in helping me navigate my course schedule, major requirements, study abroad, and so much more. But I remember as an incoming first year having so many questions leading up to my first semester. but being unsure of how to best utilize my academic advisor. And I know that there are probably plenty of incoming students sitting at home watching this webinar with similar concerns. So Dean Carrillo, can you provide some insight on the Center for Student Advising and what exactly a relationship with an academic advisor looks like? So what is an academic advisor's role? How does one interact with them? And I'm sure a lot of incoming first years also have questions about what to expect when registering for classes. So perhaps it might also be useful if you can touch on the course selection process and how an academic advisor can help navigate that at the start of the school year.
Sure, thank you, McKenna. These are all great questions. You all should have received an email from the Barrick Center for Student Advising last Friday, or CSA for short, with the name and contact information of your assigned CSA advisor. That is the person who will be working with you for the entire 4 years at Columbia. This is in addition, of course, to the directors of undergraduate studies, which Dean Halabaugh alluded to, as well as the faculty and departmental advisors within the SEAS engineering departments, who you have access to throughout your time at Columbia. Your CSA advisor is one that will be able to answer all of your questions that you have related to Columbia. We subscribe to a holistic advising model, which means we advise the whole student. So that would include all of the personal, social, developmental, familial aspects of your lives that affect your academics. Your CSA advisor can help you navigate through the transition and the ups and downs of being in a new environment. If we don't know the answer, certainly we're ready and willing to refer you to all of our colleagues across campus offices who we partner with very closely to support your success. We help you develop your short and long-term goals, which includes selecting your major, concentration, or minor, which also may include balancing your academic and non-academic responsibilities, as well as we help you develop a 4-year plan so that it can lead you to a successful completion of your degree. You will receive an email this week from your assigned advisor to prompt you to make an appointment this week in the coming weeks in July and August. This will just be the initial appointment that will give you the opportunity to get to know each other for a little bit and to help answer any and all your questions. It will also give you the time to discuss your fall schedule in preparation of registration, which will take place in the week or two before New Student Orientation Program, or NSOP. You will be registering online on your own through the Student Services Online Portal, or SSOL. In addition to the required core courses for Columbia College students and the required foundational sciences for Columbia engineering students, we will help you shape and decide upon what other courses are appropriate to add to those required courses. We will also help you to decide what other co-curricular opportunities you want to do in addition to your academics to complement your experience. Although meeting with a CSA advisor is not mandatory, we strongly encourage it. We'll continue to proactively reach out to you throughout the semester, and we hope that you as well will proactively connect with us. Your advisor, besides the one-on-one advising appointments you have, we will also likely recommend you to our pre-professional advising staff if you are pre-med and pre-law. These advisors solely help you with the advising process through even the school application process, and even upon graduation as alumni, you could also utilize these services. Your CSA advisor may also recommend the tutoring that we offer through CSA. That includes introductory courses, tutoring in such subjects as bio, chemistry, calculus, physics, computer science, statistics, and economics. And lastly, in addition to academic success seminars that CSA puts on subjects such as how to effectively prepare for finals, the CSA offers students the opportunity to work with our peer and academic skills consultants who are juniors and seniors in both Columbia College and Columbia Engineering, who are there to help students build on their academic skills within regards to effective learning strategies, time management, note-taking, active reading, and studying strategies. So on behalf of the CSA, we look forward to connecting with you all in all of these various ways.
Thank you.
I know. Oh, thank you, McKenna.
Thank you so much, Dean Carrillo. That's all very helpful insight.
So I also have a question for McKenna and Lynn at this moment, if possible. Since both of you are juniors and your firsthand experience and insights can be invaluable to our incoming students, what are some of the biggest adjustments you had to make when you began at Columbia, and what resources did you utilize?
Yeah, so I think for me, one of the adjustments, and I think Dean Brovman and Dean Hollabaugh sort of spoke to this a bit, was adjusting to the academics of Columbia. And some things I used to help myself with that were study groups in my classes. So just reaching out to other people that you see in your classes. Most other people will be in the same situation, that they want to have people to study with and work with. And I found that was a really great way to both like build relationships with my classmates and make friends, but also have some resources where if I had a question in the class that that I needed answered quickly, I had people I could reach out to, and I sort of had a community within the classes I was taking, which was really helpful for me, especially as a C student. A lot of people were in multiple of my classes, so we sort of got a little group going, and that was a really big help in my first year. Something else that I would really recommend using for the sort of transition to the academics is faculty office hours. I noticed a really big difference in my first year and my second year at Columbia, because in my first year, I was kind of nervous to go to office hours because I felt like I didn't necessarily have like a really deep thought out question about the course material. And in my sophomore year, I realized you don't need to have that at all to go to office hours. You can just stop by and chat and say hi. And the professors are really excited to talk to you about the work that they're doing and learn a little bit more about the students in their class. So since I've started utilizing that more, I've seen a really sort of big transition in my engagement in the classes, and it's really wonderful to have these relationships with professors, and they can lead to sort of opportunities down the line for research, or the professor could recommend that you take one of their higher level classes, which is really a wonderful thing and really exciting. I would also say that I had there's a transition between living at home and being a high school student and sort of to being a college student and maybe living on your own or having more independence and having more independence in your classes. And I found that my Center for Student Advising advisor was really helpful in both my academic and personal transition. I would go visit her every single week, and we built a pretty good relationship, and she was able to give me a lot of advice, not only on what classes I should take, but sort of how to handle those classes, how to figure out what I wanted out of my academic career and sort of life. And she became a really good advocate for me as well. So when I was struggling one semester with taking finals, she was able to help me sort of bridge a communication line with my professors where we could communicate the situation I was in and help get me into the situation I need to be. So your advisors can be a really great advocate for you personally as well. And I found that was super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think a resource that I really greatly benefited from in my first year especially was the Writing Center, and I kind of the one-on-one consultations and feedback that I was able to receive on my papers. And what I really appreciate about the Writing Center is that it doesn't matter like what stage of the writing process you're in, whether you're brainstorming and you need help figuring out a paper topic, or you're in your final stages of writing your paper and you just need a read through on a rough draft. And I think it really allowed me to kind of gain a better grasp for what's expected of me in university level writing. So I think it really helps with that adjustment period. And I greatly recommend that resource. I also really utilized the math department's help rooms in my first year as well. And what they are is basically just allocated or set aside hours where TAs from across the math department are available to offer help on, whether it be problem sets or exam preparation questions. And I think what I really love about those help rooms is that, I think, like has been mentioned in this webinar, it's so crucial definitely to attend your professor's office hours, build connections with your professors, but also, there's always a chance that the way a TA explains or approaches a concept clicks with you better than the way your professor did. And so at least personally for me, it was really just having the opportunity to gain insight on material from an array of TAs in the math department was very helpful for me. So I also recommend that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, McKenna. Appreciate it.
Great. So that concludes our panel discussion for today. So now we're going to move to the question and answer portion. So I'm going to have all of our panelists join us. And you have all been asking great questions in the chat. There are a lot of them. So forgive us. We've bunched them together according to theme. And then please keep in mind, too, that there are many webinars this week that are breakout topics regarding certain specific ones. So if there are questions that you don't feel that are answered today, please take a look at some of those and they might address them in depth and over an entire session. So our first question is for Dean Brovman. Can you follow up a little bit on the 3-semester academic year? How will tuition and scheduling work? And how many credits are students supposed to take? And would this move your degree progression along quicker?
Thanks, Marnie, and thank you for that question. I will speak specifically from the C's perspective, but I think it applies relatively equally also to the Columbia College perspective. So all undergraduate students must be enrolled for 12 credits in an academic term, in a regular academic term. So fall and spring semesters, students are required to be enrolled for 12 credits in order to maintain full-time status. In C's, as we've been looking at the 3-term schedule, if you would, we are really strongly encouraging our students, not only first years, to consider taking 4 courses in the fall, 4 courses in the spring, and 2 in summer A. The way that scheduling is being set up by the different departments that our students will be taking courses in, students will be able to meet the same requirements that they would ordinarily in their first year and subsequent years by taking 4 classes in the fall, 4 in the spring, and 2 in summer A. And we don't see any impediment to that leading towards normal progress towards the degree. We actually think it's a really good way to encourage students to slow down rather than to accelerate, and to give themselves more time with their academics than the normal pattern, which is for C students to take 5 classes a semester and maybe sometimes 6. So we think this is a really good way to spread out one's courses, make normal progress towards the degree, be where you need to be at the end of the first academic year. With respect to tuition, undergraduate students are charged a flat tuition rate for their coursework, so it is not per credit, and more of that information will be, the tuition and so on will be sent out sometime in the next short period of time that's going to be made available. But the deans have agreed that for the 3-semester program, if you would, students would be capped at 40 credits over that period of time that would be covered under the flat tuition rate.
Great, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. My next question is for Dean Holaba. It's about the core. So what is the LitHum reading for this summer? Will all LitHum classes be taught by professors? And will they all be online, or will there be in-person elements?
Great, thank you. I'm so glad you're all interested in the core. Before I answer those questions, could I just add that what Dean Brofman just said about the way of spreading out courses over the 3 semesters will apply just as much to Columbia College students. Someone, I believe, asked a question about the fact that there are currently the same number of possible credits that you can take in the fall and the spring, but normally Columbia College students are averaging about 15 or 16 credits a semester, and you can take as few as 12, and that would help you achieve the spread that Dean Brofman mentioned of 4 classes and 4 classes in 2. But that's only one model. You'll be able to talk to your advisors about a lot of others. So in terms of your questions about LitHum, very good question about summer reading. There's not going to be a summer reading list. As I mentioned, you're going to have plenty to read once September gets here. But there will be one shared summer reading. And I don't want to spoil it by telling you what it is. It's actually not the same as what McKenna's was. So you will get an announcement there. You'll be hearing this week from my colleague Larry Jackson, who is Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, who helps support the core curriculum. And he's also the person who'll be hosting the webinar tomorrow on the core curriculum. He's going to be writing to all of the new first-year students to welcome you, to tell you a little bit more about LitHum, and to give you a little bit of information. And then next week, you'll also be hearing from Professor Joanna Stahlnacher, who is currently our faculty chair of Literature Humanities, and she will be welcoming you. So the 2 of them will be rolling out this information, and there will be a text that you will all be encouraged to read together and be ready to discuss when you come to campus. So stay tuned. The other questions had to do with whether or not the LitHum will be online or hybrid or high flex is the model that Columbia is using. That is actually still being determined because, as I think you know, we've had to make several different plans over the course of the summer as we've watched to see how things have evolved in our campus in New York City and New York State. So it's very recently that we have known that we can have in-person elements on campus. And so we've been busily planning for that, and the faculty right now are making it clear which ones they will teach. And we are getting that information into all the sources of information you can find. And by next Monday, the 20th, you might see some of it even earlier, but by next Monday, the 20th, you should be able to see whether the courses are taught online, fully in person, or in a kind of hybrid in between. And so stay tuned for that as well. And then finally, there was a question about whether LitHum is taught solely by professors. And I imagine you might have an image in your mind of a seasoned senior faculty member. Our LitHum classes and our core classes more generally are taught by, we think of it as intergenerational. They are taught by a range of people in terms of where they are in their academic careers. We have people who have been teaching in the core for 25 years, having taught their whole career at Columbia. We have new professors who have just joined Columbia who are teaching the core for the first time, and we do have advanced graduate students who must already have taught before and who have gone through a competitive selection process and are working closely with the chair of the department as they teach literature humanities classes. So you could end up with someone who is younger, older, seasoned, not seasoned, and yet who is prepared to work with you as you all, as I mentioned earlier, collectively discover the importance of the text. Full disclosure, I taught literature humanities when I was a graduate student, so I would like to think there's no bias against that. And in fact, some of the graduate students who teach our classes are some of the most energetic and committed people you could ever want to work with. So I would encourage you to you know, stay open to who the person is who'll be in the room with you when you take literature humanities. Thanks.
Thank you. I did not know that. That's a fun fact. Okay, so our next question is to McKenna and Lynn. Would you both recommend prioritizing exploration in your first year or focus on your major to open up the possibilities for a double major? So I don't know who wants to go first. Lynn, great.
Yeah, so I think that I would say that exploration is a really important part of being a college student. A lot of times your plans for what you want to study are going to change a lot. And if you focus 100% on completing your major or first major immediately, you might not get the chance to explore other things that could be something you're really passionate about or interested in. I know as an engineering student coming in, I had no idea what I wanted to do at all. And I didn't have any idea basically until the semester that I had to declare my major. And the way that I figured it out is I really kept myself open to experiencing all the different departments that I could. So in my first year, I don't know, I thought I was going to be a mechanical engineer, then a biomedical engineer, and then I thought maybe computer science. So for all of these things that I had even a bit of interest in, I took the time to go on to the bulletin online, and you can find the course requirements for every single major, both in the engineering school and in Columbia College. And I would look through those requirements and sort of try and read the little descriptions about each class and see if I was interested in it. And then in a lot of cases, those pages will have a contact for sort of the director of undergraduate studies or a faculty member, and being open to reaching out to them, seeing if you can talk to someone in the department a little bit more about the major. I would say even as an engineering student, I even considered briefly switching to Columbia College and studying sociology or sustainable development. And I took some of those classes and decided that, that wasn't for me. And I wanted to be an engineer and do earth and environmental engineering. And through that sort of exploration, I discovered my minor of sociology, which I didn't even know what sociology was until I took the intro course. And I really, really love it now. And, I wouldn't have that if I didn't explore. The thing I would say is explore, but know the requirements of the things you're interested in exploring. That way you can make sure you stay on track and I don't say necessarily like maximize your options, but have, the flexibility that if you do, change your mind, that you can still fit that in. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I don't think I could really put it better. In my first year, I was also, while I was exploring, I came in pretty undecided as well. And so when I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to explore and what classes I wanted to take in my first and second semester as a first year, I spent a lot of time speaking with my CSA advisor about just making sure that I could take, like Lynn said, just maximize my options in a way where I was taking introductory courses in the potential majors that I was considering. So yeah, just be cognizant of those requirements while you're exploring, I would say, like Lynn said perfectly.
Great. Okay, so then we have one more question for Dean Carrillo. What is the student to advisor ratio? How do we prepare for our first meeting with our advising dean? And when and how do you register for classes?
Sure. The advising ratio is about, for each CSA advisor, about 250 to 300, and some of our advisors certainly have less depending on their administrative responsibilities. I wouldn't want that ratio to at all scare you. We, again, just to reiterate, our primary responsibility is to serve as a resource to all of the students that we're assigned to. And we work at building really strong relationships, which, to go back to what I mentioned earlier, it's a proactive relationship where we interact with the students and want them to come in, and it really is a two-way street. We want you to come in as well, and we will work with you throughout your time. And the more we see each other and the more we interact with you is how we will build a stronger relationship. And for sure, I interact with my students even beyond their graduation, right? So I have a lot of strong connections with my students who are now moved on to bigger and better things beyond Columbia. In terms of the the registration, to plan for that first meeting to discuss registration with your advisor, you will get an email this week directly from your CSA advisor, which will detail everything you need to do to prepare for that initial meeting. That will include exploring our academic planning guide, looking at the directory of classes, looking at the CC bulletin online, looking at the Columbia Engineering bulletin online, using the tool that we use for registration called Virtual, exploring student services online. All of these many resources will be all encompassing in the one email that you'll get this week. So please keep in mind that you'll get it, look forward to it, read it thoroughly, because it's going to be a long, extensive, detailed email. And the last question was, will advisors help guide an application for graduate school? Yes, generally advisors can help students with their, the options to consider graduate school. We also would refer our students to the directors of undergraduate study, as well as the faculty advisors within the academic departments, to help along with that decision, because it is an individual one, just about what schools are best for them, what programs are best for them, and what faculty to be working with at the various schools that they can choose from.
Okay. So then before we close out, does anyone have any final thoughts? Dean Hollabaugh or Dean Brockman especially?
Sure. I'd like to just kind of summarize a little bit of what a lot of us have said about the challenges and the excitement of this next year, the first year, for those of you who are going to be new first-year students in college. It's a bit of a roller coaster. This is a place that is every bit as exciting and wonderful as you imagine it to be. It's also a place that you are not familiar with yet, and it will take some time for you to become familiar with it, and you may sometimes feel that everybody else seems to have it all under control and you're not sure if you know what you're doing. Every single student in our incoming class is someone we're excited to have join us at Columbia and excited to work with. So I just want to emphasize that even when things seem challenging or difficult, everyone here is looking forward to working with you and really wants to help you succeed. So I hope that you will reach out to all of the people who have already reached out to you, and also be looking for ways to make more connections to all of us. So we're really excited to have you join us this fall.
And Marnie, if I may just add to what Dean Hollabaugh has said, of course, we're looking forward to welcoming all of you to our community. We encourage you to look forward to this with enthusiasm and great anticipation. It's a great journey. You've got a lot of resources, many of whom you already are aware of, and many more still to come. And we encourage you to look forward through the next 6 to 8 weeks with enthusiasm and anchored anticipation. And we know that this journey will be a great one, and we're all here to support you and help you be successful along your way. So welcome again. Thank you.
Great. So this concludes our session for today. I know there's plenty of other great questions in the chat that we were unable to answer because of time. So I would encourage you all to visit the Countdown to Columbia website to look at the full schedule of this week's Academics at Columbia themed webinars. And in the following weeks, there will be 3 other themed webinars and plenty of breakout sessions to attend. If you know of any of your classmates that were unable to join us today, a recording of this session will be available via the Countdown website tomorrow, and future sessions will also be available via recording after they happen live. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in future webinars and welcome you to the community during the new student orientation program. All right. Thank you all so much.